start recording. Ali doesn't have the app for this, so it has to be like this and not move. I'm
I
doing
will
that.
volunteer.
Okay, do it.
You can test. No, to help you testing things.
That is good. It works.
Working. It's working. It's working. Camera is good.
Yeah, it's
More closer.
Oh yeah, thank you.
No, because I made my presentation assuming that it's going to be like multiple, which is
Ok, we're gonna start. On va vous inviter à vous asseoir. On va commencer.
Surtout que tu as deux niveaux.
Don't move, what happened? Oh,
Bring it down.
why? Why down?
Down
Just
is
put it.
better.
Put it in the middle. It's good like this.
You look the people from down and
Don't mess up. Okay, it's good. I think it started, right? Yeah, it started. Okay, everyone. I invite you to sit. Take pizza before being locked. Cool. Almost. Yeah, we can start. Okay, let's go. So thank you everyone for coming. I think everyone faced the snow outside. It's very courageous. Thank you. So today, so we started at 6. I'm gonna do the opening talk now, some announcement, and then we will have Alexander and Florian who will talk from Circle Medical. And after that, we have a break, 15 minutes, and then we'll have Jan, who will talk about clean Flutter, and then closing talk and raffle. So I don't remember the thing. So FlutterMTL for now, for who's the first time here? Oh, okay, too. That's cool. So we have meetups like this every month. We are supported by Flutter Meetup network. It's a group. It's a community supported by Google, and we're also part of GDG Montreal, which is also supported by Google. It's another chapter, something else, which both of this community, you have it in every cities, and we have the chance in Montreal to have both of them. So we have monthly meetups, so you can come next month if you want. And you can join us on Discord and have more information. So this is the organizers, me, Billy. So there's Ali and Jin here. And if you have any trouble with those things, you can just talk to us or go to this website. Here are QR codes. If you want to take pictures, you can share with us. It will be a Google photo. I'll let you some time to scan it. And we will put all the pictures inside also. It will be on Discord, so you can come on Discord. Is it good? Okay. Okay. And we'd like to say thank you to Circle Medical. Who is? You want to have a small? You want to talk about Circle Medical a bit?
Well, I'll talk about it
After? Okay, okay, that's cool. Okay, okay.
right after.
Yeah, okay. And also Flutter Meetup Network for sponsoring. So thank you, Circle Medical, for the venue, for the food, everything, hosting us. And here, Alexander and Florian, if you can come. Okay, this
Yep. Thank you very much.
and this.
Oh,
Magnet.
Sure. Oh, it's a magnet here.
Yeah.
Hold this. No.
Yeah.
Put it over here. Oh, you can. Whoa.
Finish.
Try like that. Sorry, guys. Does that work?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty.
Just click if you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Cool. So I just want to start by thanking you all for coming. It's such a crazy weather outside, so really appreciate you coming. And I really want to thank the Flutter community for embracing us. You know, I was at the event last month, the Flutter production, and I met the guys at GDG Montreal. So I just want to say a huge thank you to the organizers, Billy, Jin, and Ali. Thank you so much, guys. And I just want to say, the Flutter community in general has been so positive and open and welcoming to us. So I really want to thank the Flutter community. You know, Circle Medical, the whole Flutter journey is fresh. It's new. You know, it's super fresh. So we're learning every day, and the community's been super open. So you'll be hearing from us a lot. You know, we'll be reaching out more for help. I'm sure there's going to be surprises along the way. So thank you so much for coming. What else can I say? Circle Medical. Oh yeah. So what am I going to talk about? So native to Flutter, right? So the Circle app. I don't know where it went. It disappeared. Yeah. So Circle app started 8 years ago. iOS. It started on iOS. Then they built an Android, and you can imagine 8 years later, the tech that it's taken. You know, and so, you know. About 2.5 years ago, I started at Circle. I was an iOS dev, and you know what inspired this talk was when I told one of our junior devs, well, he's not a junior anymore, he's a mid, but you know, the comment he made was, wow, I can't believe we're actually doing it, you know? I mean, imagine you're at a company with an established native app, you know, and it's so hard to kind of convince people to, let's go into Flutter, let's try something new, you know? So I just wanted to share the experience of how we got there, a little bit of like, you know, how we got there. And by the way, I'm like completely off script, so if you guys have any questions, like please feel free to jump in, you know? So I'll show you guys the app real quick. And it's not working. Hey, there we go. Hey.
Is this the Flutter app?
This is the iOS app, right? So we actually haven't released the Flutter yet, right? So why isn't it working? So it's basically an app that you can use, right? You create an account, and then you go in the app. You can book an appointment. When you book an appointment, and I'll show you. You can schedule the doctor. You know what? I'm gonna forget about the demo because working. But schedule a doctor, right? You book a time, and it's to have like basically a Zoom call of a doctor, a doctor's appointment, and it's in the U.S. So a couple tricky things about that. Number one is like insurance in the U.S. is like such a huge pain point, figuring out which doctor can I go see, what is covered, what can my doctor talk to me about. Depending on the state, some doctors can see, some doctors can't. So there's a huge part of the back end that manages all the insurance stuff. We also manage the booking, right? Finding the right time with the doctor. Then you have the call, the video call. During the video call, the doctor uses another tool that we have. They use like a web tool called Helix. And of that tool, they check the patient's medical data and they prescribe medications. And then for the app, you can follow your prescription and go pick up the prescription at the clinic. So we have the whole thing. We handle the payment. We hire the doctors. We pay the doctors. So it's one big kind of crazy machine. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you use for payment providers?
What do we use for them?
Yes.
Like, what do you mean, like?
Payment providers, like Stripe or...
Oh, yeah. We use Stripe. Yeah, we use Stripe. So Stripe is when you have a credit card, but most of our patients use insurance, so we handle that. But we also got the Stripe. Great question. So a few other things I wanted to mention is for analytics, we use Amplitude. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Amplitude, RudderStack, and we use Grovebook for feature flags. So we have the ability to toggle features of flags. We have the ability to run experiments. So we run experiments to see if something's working or not. We use Sentry for crash reporting. We use Zoom for the video calls. And what am I forgetting? We also have something that verifies the ID, right? You have to have a valid ID to do an appointment. And the reason I'm mentioning all these SDKs is because it was part of the decision of why Flutter, right? So now that you know kind of what it is, how do we get to Flutter? Well, what happened was, I'm the engineering manager, right? I used to be a dev, then I went into management. And one thing that kept coming up is my devs were saying, hey, we want to try out Flutter. And at the beginning, I used to be against it. I used to be an iOS native, hardcore purist. I said, oh, it has to be iOS. You need to have that cutting edge user experience. But after a few years of working with this app, I realized that our patients aren't platform sensitive. It's not like the end of the world if it's not like a sexy animation, or like and all that. So I eventually started to think, you know what, I'm being too hardcore about this. And what really, pushed me over the edge is the devs kept asking me about Flutter. Say, hey, we want to do Flutter. Hey, we want to do Flutter. So eventually I was like, you know what, like we got to do this. The thing is, our CTO was a bit shy to try something new, The big kind of drawbacks are, oh, well, will the devs be able to learn Flutter, What do you guys think? Will they be able to learn Dart, Is there a big enough community to hire in, For example, we have a backend in Ruby, and we did struggle to hire Ruby devs. Montreal's a nice, strong Ruby community. We still struggle to hire Ruby devs. So I think it's a little bit of PTSD of like, will we be able to hire Flutter devs? So that was a big point. And so I kind of went back and forth. And then one day there was like this magic moment where I was in a meeting with the CTO and two other EMs. And I saw the opportunity, I saw it and I was like, for some reason, one of the other EMs said, oh, Flutter's not that bad. And I jumped on and I said, hey, we're going to do a proof of concept. And I got 1, 2, 3 okays. Boom, let's go. So we got one of our devs, Mujib. He did a proof of concept. And what he did is he took this feature here. I'm going to see if it works. Is it working? Why isn't it working? No. Should be good. Anyway, this feature here, basically you click on one of these are called areas of care. You click on one, there's another page that opens up, basically static text, and it describes what the area of care is, right? For example, get better sleep, right? Some patients have trouble sleeping. We specialize in that. So there's another page that opens up, static text with a static image. Here's how we treat sleep. You hit a button, and then it takes you to book an appointment. So what Mujib did is he basically just did that one static screen. And he's like, look, proof of concept. For each area of care, we'll just duplicate the screen. And we started to do it. And it was really just a proof of concept. Like, we weren't trying to sell like, hey, let's go to Flutter. It was just like, hey, let's just do this for fun. So Mujib starts working on the proof of concept. And then I go on vacation, right? And then when I come back from vacation, I find out that we're going to restructure the whole engineering development cycle, the way we manage development. By the way, I forgot to check the time. How much time do I have left? 5 minutes? Okay, cool. That's going fast. All right. I didn't even get started, man. All right. You told me. I get back from vacation, they're like, we're doing this pods thing, right? So what is pods, right? Pods is, so what we had before is we had one Scrum board, right? And all the mobile tickets are on the same board. And I had 3 different PMs coming to me. And they're all saying, oh, Alex, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do this. And the prioritization, imagine, it was complete chaos, right? Oh, my thing's more important, my thing's more important. So then, you know, with pods, what you do is you take a dev from each team, you make a pod, and they focus on one company priority. And when you do that, you know, the devs don't have to worry about context switching, you know? So, sorry. So they come back, they're like, we're doing pods. And I was like, okay, well, thank God that we're doing this Flutter proof of concept, because without that, we'd be screwed. Because we only have 5 mobile devs, and they have 8 pods. There's no way we can do more than 1 dev. Like two devs per pod doesn't make any sense. So we're in Flutter. My gosh, the time thing really threw me off. Okay. So, you know, why Flutter, right? I mean, a lot of the web devs said, oh, we got to do React.js. You know, we got to do React.js. No, React Native. The thing is, you know, React Native, I don't know. I haven't used it that much, but the vibe I got is that it's so web-focused. And all my devs were asking for Flutter, so I'm like, well, go what the dev wants, you know? So the community, the devs, that's really what pushed us to Flutter. Also, we noticed that all these SDKs had Flutter equivalents, so that's a good one. The demo, proof of concept, it was working. We're happy with that. Happy with the UI. And you know, one thing I wanted to kind of mention before ending the talk is like the challenges that I foresee coming. And I want to ask you guys if you've experienced any of these challenges, right? So one challenge is we have a design system for Android and iOS, right? So our designer will design a component, and then, you know, we make an Android, make an iOS, both, and now we're going to add Flutter. Okay, so the other thing is, the way we're going to do Flutter is we're going to inject a screen one at a time, right, into the app. And Florian will talk a little bit more about that during his talk. But my question is, if we're going to do Flutter on top of iOS, on top of Android, we're going to have to maintain those components across yet another stack, you know? So I was wondering, has anyone here experienced that issue? Awesome. And how did you address it?
We have six ways of rendering.
6 what?
We have 6 ways of rendering.
Of rendering?
Not just Android, iOS. We have small devices, medium devices, because now you have not just phones, but you have phones with 2, like Google Phone.
Right.
And then you have large screens. So
But
3 rendering breakpoints and dynamic feedback between Android, iOS, Mac, Linux, different flavors.
Right, but my point is like, say I have a legacy feature, right, that uses a component that is going to exist in a new feature, right? So we add a new screen that uses that component. How do I maintain the components between the Flutter and the iOS and Android
We
side?
just use material free across the board.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't do sub-theming at the widget level.
Yeah.
It's all material free.
Cool. The other thing I was going to ask is one other reason we want to go Flutter is that it's going to unify the analytics, right? Because right now we implement analytics on Android, implement analytics on iOS, but it's not consistent between both platforms. Like a click here is a click there. You know what I mean? So with Flutter, you'll be able to have that consistent analytics between the two. But now, how do I maintain a system with the legacy stack and the new Flutter stack? Any thoughts on that?
So you are using a native application and then you put the Flutter app on top of it. So you're actually making kind of hybrid.
We're putting basically we run the engine in the background, and then we just inject the screen. Like,
So you still have the iOS native piece, and then you have Flutter.
right. The other thing I wanted to mention is that one of the big legacy pieces of code is the navigation bar at the bottom, right? We use a coordinator pattern. So there's a coordinator that handles the navigation controller for the tab. And then you hit a button here, that opens up a new coordinator for the new stack that comes up. And that piece is so legacy, it's so spaghetti that's why we wanted the modular approach, right? Because, okay, now we don't need to touch the navigation stack, we can just inject the screen. And we keep the old navigation stack as it is, right? The reason I'm bringing that up is, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much what I wanted to share, So more to come. We haven't delivered it yet. We basically have a phased plan for delivery, and we're hoping to deliver the first feature next quarter. So when we do that, we'll have another talk to share our experience. And thanks for having us. Go ahead, Ali.
Do you have any statistics like how improve your workflow, or do you have any improvement or any I don't know, any stats like revenue wise or something that's when you migrate to the product?
Well, the big gain that we're trying to have is increasing the developer output, right? Because right now it's each dev, codes a feature on their stack. So for example, I want to code a feature for the billing screen, right? I need one dev to do iOS, one dev to do Android. So now the goal is that when we start implementing Flutter, we can have one dev do both, and you basically cut the time in half. Maybe not half, but like 60%, So that's the real goal, and that's where we're heading to. But we haven't gotten there yet because we haven't released anything yet, right? We're still building the foundation of the code, but that's the real goal for that. The other goal is you save time on design, right? You don't have to do design for both stacks. You save time on implementing analytics, on testing, so those are the real kind of metrics we're going for. So we'll try and have something for next time. Yeah. Awesome. Yes, go ahead.
So you mentioned that you're sort of injecting the screens developed from Flutter to a sort of native environment, right?
Yeah.
My question, why not start from scratch?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the classic. So the thing is, how do you start from scratch on something that's so, let's call it mature, I mean, the other thing is there's some parts of the app that, are so old that we don't even have the full requirements, right? They're not documented. So when I'm programming something, sometimes the requirement is it has to work like it did before. Which is kind of a nightmare for the QE, right? because they have to go and make sure everything's fine. And so as we're going, okay, now we're documenting as we go. Now we're, keeping it fresh. But the stuff that's old and it's in the back, how can you even replicate it? It's like trying to change the wings on the plane while it's in flight. But we are going to explore the idea of wrapping the whole app in Flutter. The other thing is, because of the concerns from our CTO, we wanted to go with a low-risk approach, and that's why we started with one module at a time. If the first module works, cool, we're good, next one. And then maybe we get 3 or 4, okay, let's wrap the app completely and take the next step. So we're going with a more like a conservative approach. Yeah, I think you had your hand up first, or? I don't know. Oh, go.
Why don't you do Florian first and then we...
Sure, and then we do, yeah, for sure. All right, well, with no further ado, guys, I want to introduce Florian. Florian, I've been working together for a long time. We actually met at TouchTunes, a company before here, and then when we were hiring devs and I saw his name in the thing, I got really excited. So how about a big round of applause for Florian? Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to do it after. Tu peux prendre ton... Ouais, c'est compliqué. Est-ce que c'est un aimant?
Oui, c'est un aimant.
Ah, ok, c'est là. Je le mettais à l'envers.
Est-ce que tu peux mettre ta main devant la fonction? Juste pour qu'après...
Faut que je me mette plus. Alex, il était plus. Ouais, comme ça?
Mets ta main comme ça devant.
Ok.
Ok. On laisse ça. Ah, c'est bon. Cool.
Ok.
Now we can move. You will follow.
Okay. Let me know if it's good. If not, okay, we are seeing my screen. I'm just going to start this in the background while I do the presentation. All right. Well, thank you for coming. It's been really hard to come here on this with this crazy weather, so I'm actually surprised to see that many people. So my name is Florian. I'm a mobile dev at Circle Medical for more than a year now. And I say mobile dev because I used to be Android only, and now I started Flutter. I started 1 month ago, so I'm really, really new. And if I say anything wrong, please stop me and correct me if I'm wrong. So I took a subject that I think is not so complicated, which is communication between native and Flutter. And I'm curious, does anyone have experience with meta channel or pigeon? Meta channel or pigeon? Meta channel. Meta channel. Okay, cool. All right. So let's start. So I like to start by answering 2 questions. What are we talking about and why? So what is communication when we talk about native and Flutter? So basically, sometimes you want to send some information or you want to get some information from Flutter and native, and so you need a tool to do that, and that's communication. And why do we need that? The example that is given in the Flutter documentation is, let's say you want to display the battery level of the phone, and I'm pretty sure there is a library for that in Flutter now, but let's say you don't have a library, then you're going to need to use some type of communication to request that information from the native part so you can display it. And so that's one of the examples. It's not what we use for at Circle Medical. So I would say that's the usual communication part. Like you have a Flutter application, which is the client, and then when you build the Flutter app, it generates the iOS code and the Android code, and you're going to get information from one place or another. And most of you know, well, some of you know Meta Channel. Yeah. But for us, it's a little bit different. So like Alex said, we have an existing native application. And what we want to do is display some Flutter screen. Well, I know it's more complicated than that. You don't display Flutter screen, like you display the code that is generated by Flutter for the platform. But so we have an Android repo, we have an iOS repo, and we have a Flutter repo. And that makes things complicated. And also, because we basically have to handle 3 different platforms, right, in that scenario. So we have to make sure that the communication is in sync between Android, iOS, and Flutter. So communication have to be really safe for us. It's really important. Maybe before I start going into code, any question from how we use Flutter at Circle? I think Alex touched point on a lot of topic, yeah?
One question, because you're mentioning that it's hard to communicate, but how do you manage packages? Do you create one package for one feature, then you have every code in one package per feature?
Yeah, that's exactly. So we have one package that is a little bit special, like we can run as a standalone app, is Storyboard. That's what I'm going to display, actually. We have some discussion about that, actually, between the team. I would like to only use package, but some of the dev want to have a standalone application, and it's still in discussion. I didn't let go yet. Any other question before I start to go into Meta Channel? Actually, I'm going to show you what I'm going to present. I think it's going to make more sense before I dive into the code. So here I'm in Android. Okay. So what you're seeing here is our debug menu. So this is native. If I go into the feature flag setting, this is native. But here, this is Flutter. We can see it. It's not what I wanted to show. OK, let me switch app. I had a backup plan. So this is the storybook that I was talking about. We have all the color that the application is using, and we have some button that, and we're going to add more and more stuff, like different text style and all that stuff, all the component basically. So now let's jump into the code. So I was able to compile just before, like when I arrived here. I was having trouble with Gradle all day, and it looked like it's not working again. So we'll see how this goes. So let me increase the font a little bit because I hope you, yeah. All right, so here we are in the Flutter project, and I'm using the Meta Channel implementation. So, and maybe I should just go back to the application. Sorry, took. So here, what I'm going to focus on is when I press on the native part. So actually, I'm starting the navigation, and we have another concept of like, now we are in Flutter, and we're going to pass the event from Flutter to native. So when I click on the cross to close the screen, that's another another communication, I would say, another messaging part. So maybe when I go into the code, it's going to make more sense. So here I'm going to focus on navigation. So we created a method channel. Actually, this method channel is going to be used everywhere in the app. And what we're going to do is we're going to filter the method call. So it's not super clear now, but hang on tight. So to use method channel, you need to create a method channel object. So it takes a string, the name. And then once you have this method channel, you can call the set method call handler. And basically, it's just a feature. And here, it provides a method call. So I'm going to go into the method call. I have to zoom all the time because, okay, I didn't put the presentation mode. So the method call is basically the method name and argument. Argument is dynamic, so you will have to cast it to the type you expect. So here, basically what we do is we receive all the events from native, and we're going to filter the one that we support. So we have to make sure that, if I go into the method, the function that was called has the name present route. And finally, so if I do this, normally it should jump. Yeah. So here I'm in the main method, main function of the app, of the Flutter app, and that's the callback. So here we are casting the argument to the type string, optional string, and then we're going to present the screen that we want. So if I go into feature one lib, here we define the name of the route, and it's also a string. So if I resume everything, for method channel, you need to specify one string for the method channel. You need to specify one string for the function that will be called. And you're also going to specify, well, the argument. In our case, it's a string. So now remember that we have iOS, Android, and Flutter. And all of that have to be in sync, right? And I think a lot of things can go wrong using that. So, and we're going to rely heavily on communication, right? Because we're going to use it for showing specific screen, but we're also going to listen for events that are sent from Flutter to our application. Any question before I go into the Android implementation? Yeah?
This works well for stateless flows. How do you handle stateful flows with dynamic objects or very big objects that we
Oh, we are not planning on using that for communication. You mean like, let's say I have a stream of data from the native side, and I want to pass to Flutter. We're not going to do this. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to pass simple objects. And for example, if we want to send some live data, let's say the patient object update. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to collect. We are using coroutine on Android, so we're going to collect those change, and we're just going to call the function to pass the data. It's not going to be a stream that we're going to pass. We're just going to pass the data to Flutter. But I know that we are using also RX3, and I believe there is a library in Flutter that is compatible with RX3, so we could potentially pass the reference of the observable to Flutter, but I don't think we're going to go that route. And I don't really see a scenario where we're going to need it. Yeah.
In simpler use cases like GWT of a user, ML context, things that are not stored in the backend but only stored in the client.
So one way that we did is if it's a simple object, we are using shared preference to pass data between native and Flutter. But yeah, we could easily use, so those, what you refer to are not going to be streamed, right? Is not going to be, so yeah, so,
It's streamable, but it's more complex.
so I mean, you can pass any kind of data using method channel or pigeon. Maybe I can go deeper into pigeon later. It's just that using method channel, you will have to cast your object, and a lot of things can go wrong, right? Pigeon do it for you. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, though.
No, but it answers the question. You're using shared preferences as a cache between both layers.
Kind of, yeah. Any other question?
Just really quick, you mentioned that a lot of things go wrong with implementation. Explain.
Well, let's say I'm working on Flutter, on the Flutter part, and I'm working on Android because I always have a tendency to work on Android first because that's what I like the most. So, and let's say something stupid, I change this string here, and I'm gonna test it on Android. So I'm gonna, well, let's jump into Android. I'm gonna change it here, and I push the code in Git, and I forget to update this on iOS, right? And well, iOS will compile fine, and well, if nobody tests this feature and it goes live in prod, well, feature 1 is not available. So that thing that scared me. So that's why I started to look more into alternative. But I think we're jumping ahead here. So let's go back. I think the presentation is already really long. I'll have to speed up a little bit. So not going to go into too much detail, but so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so you see when you press the button to display the Flutter module, what we're going to do actually is start an activity, and we're going to create the method channel. So we have to use the same method channel name, then we have to use the same method name, and then the same argument. And well, like I said, a lot of things can go wrong, and so, but you can still know about it. So if you have the on success, success, error, and not implemented function, depending on the result of trying to display the feature. Yeah, that's pretty much it actually for the Android implementation. So I'm going to go back to the presentation, and I'm going to talk about the method channel pros and cons. So the pros is that it's doing the job. It allows communication between native and Flutter. It's lightweight. You see that you don't need a lot of setup. You just need to define the string and make sure you use the same one. And it works well for simple case. But the cons are you have a lot of magic string, and you cannot have a constant somewhere that sits between native and Flutter. So of course, you can have the constant on each project, but you always have to make sure that the constant is the same everywhere. So and that's what makes it not safe. You will compile the project just fine if you're not having the same, if the method channel are not configured properly. And the only way to find out an issue is by actually testing, and that's a little bit scary, like I said before. And it's a little bit of boilerplate, like you always have to have the success, error, and not implemented function, and you have to set up all those strings. So a little bit of boilerplate. So you must think there must be a better way, right? And yes, there is. Pigeon. Actually, when you start to read the documentation about communication on the Flutter documentation, they mention first method channel, and right after they say, but if you want to have type safety, have a look at Pigeon. So let's see how it works. And I'm going to try to compile again and hope for the best. Check out. Am I good on time? I can speed up a little bit. I'm seeing people checking their watch. Okay, middle strap. Okay. So I'm not going to go into how to add the library into the project. I think that's pretty simple. Let's zoom in. So what you need to do is you create a file that is going to define how the Pigeon library generates the file. Because the way we have type safety communication between projects is by actually generating file from that file. So for the setup, you just need to specify the class name and the path where the file is going to sit. And you have some option like defining the package name and the error class. And that's it. Here, what I'm doing is I'm creating an abstract class called Flutter Navigation. So this class is going to be used by Android and Flutter, but on the Android side, we're going to create an object, Flutter Navigation, and we're going to call the route. And on Flutter, we're just going to implement this abstract class and get the function call when it receives an event. So right now, we just have one storybook. Yeah. So let's see how it's used on Flutter. We'll zoom in again. So, Flutter Navigation. So I created this class, navigation handler that implements Flutter Navigation that override the goto function. And so I do some setup. And that's pretty much it for the Flutter part. Now, every time iOS, Android is going to send an event, so this goto function will be triggered, and we're going to call this present route. And actually here in the build feature, we're actually going to match the route with the proper screen to show. And oops, if I go on Android, I'm going to switch again. Integration with Pigeon checkout. Change here. Please, Gradle, help me. Why you don't want to cooperate today? Well, so we're going to see a little bit of red, but that's not too bad. So remember when we talk about meta channel to start a specific Flutter screen? This is done here. So I'm going to create, like I said before, the Flutter Navigation object that takes a binary messenger. And what I can do is just use this Flutter Navigation goto function and pass the route that I want to go to. So I cannot pass anything that is not supported, right? It has to be something of that type. So, okay, maybe you just want to import the class. No, you don't want. So let's go back actually to the Flutter. I forgot to mention how to generate the file. So once you created your file here, you actually have to tell the library to generate those files. And the way you do it is by calling run pigeon input with the file name. But what I did is created a script that will go over the pigeon folder, so where we define the class that need to be generated, and is going to generate all those files. So just to show you that I'm not lying, I'm going to delete. Here. Wow, so much red. I don't know what's going on. Delete. Okay. Now I'm going to run regenerate pigeon. I'm going to go to Android. And they are generated. So you might say, okay, but let's say you add a new feature. So let's go into the other part, not the navigation part, really quickly. Debug menu. So this is about the interaction. So because, that's something I forgot to mention, when you want to, when what you want to do is navigate, communicate from native to Flutter, you're going to add the annotation Flutter API. And when you want to do the opposite way, you're going to use the host API annotation. And so let's add, show. And I'm going to go a little bit crazy and see. So pretty sure it's going to fail. So what you want to do is make sure that every time you compile, you have the latest generated file. Ambiguous. Let me try to delete this, see what it says. Okay. I'm not lucky today. Nothing is working. But to make sure that you always have the latest generated file, what I do is I created a task on Gradle to run before we actually do the build. So it's going to generate all my file. So I'm sure that every time I build, I have the latest implementation, I would say, of Flutter, and is going to make sure that at compile time, that everything is in sync between my Flutter code and my native code. I really don't understand why it's failing, but anyway. So, any question from what you've seen so far? Yeah?
This Gradle task that you're running,
Yeah.
it's running the script that you just showed us, right? But that script is in the Flutter project.
Yeah.
So how is it working?
So that's something I'm going to show later in the presentation. So you have to make sure that all the dev have the same project structure. Basically, iOS, Android, and Flutter have to live under the same folder, just to make sure that all the path that I showed you before in the config file are the same. And also, the script that I've added, it sits in Flutter. So this Gradle task point to the Flutter project, in the Flutter project to the script, yeah. I mean, I could put it somewhere else. I could put it at the root, but since, like, I believe it makes more sense to have it on the Flutter side, because that's where you create your pigeon file that's going to use, yeah. But it can be anywhere. I mean, it can be even outside of the, yeah. You just have to point to the right path.
This is the Android project of your Flutter project.
So that's the native application here.
This is the native. Okay, so it's because in Flutter you have a
Yeah.
folder for Android.
Yeah.
This is not that.
No, it's not that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, it's like Inception, right? We have native, Flutter, and then native again. Yeah, I know. And one reason why, at the beginning, we mentioned that we have one module that runs as a standalone app is, and we commit all, so if I switch here, you see this storybook? We have the Android and iOS folder to run as a standalone app, and I really don't like that. Like, we have, yeah, like you said, like we have Android, Flutter, and then Android again. So that's why I'm still fighting to remove that and only use module, so we don't have those. But every time so what I want to, maybe I go too much into this, but we have this core module that I use to check the UI that I'm working on. So I'm not sure what the right word to say is. It's compile, like I'm running this core module, and it's going to generate the Android code. So that's what I do. But yeah, I don't want to come in a state where every module have the Android and iOS. That's going to be horrible, I think. Sorry, I'm just talking about my problem here. Any other question? Yeah.
Before asking my question, I just want to see maybe your perspective of the Flutter app.
So, let me go.
I don't want to challenge you to challenge. Okay, that's
No. So we actually.
Flutter app that
So I'm not too comfortable about that because it's another dev that work on that. But we introduced Mellow because, like, for every, yeah. You answer my question. So, no, because yeah, every module have the configuration file, and actually I fight for that too. I don't want to have different version of library in module, so I has to find a way to make sure that all the modules use the same version. So that's why we introduced Melo. So.
I will ask my question at the end.
Okay. All right. Yep.
You could also use a stronger formatting structure instead of JSON or strings. For example, we use protobuf because we started our implementation before Pigeon came out. So
Yeah, for sure. But
a more strongly typed
for sure.
message passing technology.
And I mean, you also have library. I don't remember the name, but that just help you generate file. And I start to look into this. But actually, when I start to look into it, I was like, why should I build the Pigeon library, right? So you can, for sure, you can have some class that take care of the like using a JSON to pass data around. But like we have so much work to do. If a library can help us do things faster, I think we should.
It would actually slow you down at runtime. If you're using Pigeon, you're pickling and using a lot more runtime information that you need to compared to using purely web business objects.
But so.
About 100 times.
So if you do the, I'm not sure how you can use JSON to make sure that to remove those magic string that I showed before.
It's not JSON anymore, it's protobuf.
So you have to introduce a complete new.
Because we use protobuf at scale.
Yeah, but
all our technologies, so we don't use JSON.
But
It's not strong.
so
what communication?
Protobuf is the format.
Yeah, it's the format, but how can you pass it?
Mr. Chan.
Method channel, right? Yeah.
but so protobuf is to pass data between Flutter and native, right? But how?
Data format.
Yeah, it's just a data format. That's I get it. So you don't have to. So you don't have to take care of the casting of the argument, right? But how do you make sure that at compile time the communication is not broke?
Protobuf fact that the contract that will be generated, the contract that will be generated at the host, the contract that you will have on the client,
Is always the
protobuf
same.
will be the same, so you don't touch anything. When you generate a protobuf, the thing you got on the host is the same thing you got on the client.
So basically,
The goal of Pigeon, actually.
okay.
When you go in your file and you have your DAO,
Yeah.
your generation, I think, was done as such.
Yep.
You have your DAO, batch, I think, was Pigeon. The file that is generated because you didn't show that you have one file is generated, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you have. Yeah.
So that's the way for you to ensure that
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is the generated file that makes everything safe. But maybe I don't know enough about photobuffer, but okay. But yeah. Any other question? You're on time? All right. So I'm going to speed it up. Pros and cons, type safety, code generation, and improve reliability. Cons, small learning curve, code generation, it can be an overhead, and debugging with code generation can also be challenging. And I asked many times if you had any questions, so I guess you don't have any more.
So we have 10 minutes, it's 30. Can take a break.
Guys, if anyone wants to go to the bathroom,
Ça, on est bon.
Comment est-ce qu'on met ça?
Un dedans, un dedans, un dedans.
Comme ça? Ça marche? On m'entend bien? Un, deux. All right. Good to go? Hey guys, I'm Ian. I'm quite excited to be here tonight. It's going to be a simple presentation. I really thought I was presenting to beginners. I wasn't sure, but it turns out most here are intermediate, so please bear with me. It's going to be somewhat simple, but I hope you guys gain some insight. Wait, this is not working. All right. So Ian, I'm CEO. I have my own company. That doesn't really matter. We're here to talk about Flutter, at the agenda. What is at the agenda tonight? So introduction. So yeah, it's gonna be. I'm gonna start with a basic introduction with Flutter. I think I'm gonna mainly skip it since your guys are intermediate, as was established when I asked. And so I don't know if you guys know Clean Code. It's quite a seminal book about how to program well. We're gonna have a short introduction about that and the core concepts that we can find within the book. So the fundamentals, yeah. And then we're gonna brush over the basics of Flutter, integration, and the most interesting part will be probably the case study. The integration is quite simple, and then we're gonna have a Q&A. So what is Clean Code? Clean Code, it's really simple if we stay with the basics of it. So the first principle is meaningful names. Every variable, function, and class should have a name that expresses its intent. So what it does. This reduces mental load, because as we know, as programmers, we have everything in our head and we try to make sense of everything. So if we have a simple, clear name that explains either the variable, or the function, or whatever, we can just play with that in our head. More easier than if we have like a name that is this long. Sorry, Java, I don't want to mess with you, but you know yourself. Anyway, then we have a single responsibility principle. Quite simple too. So it's the principle where you have a function with a clear name. We have established that's important. And then the function has one responsibility, single responsibility principle. One responsibility, how we structured that, the abstraction of it. It's a bit more than what I have the time to explain, but remember that if you say, I want to go into it, but I don't think I have the time. For the questions, after, we'll go into the questions, yes, after. Then don't repeat yourself or dry, which is don't duplicate code, because otherwise you'll have more things to manage afterwards. And then also simplicity is quite key in this. Okay. Oh, wait. I just dropped this here because this is confusing me. Okay, so I was at the wrong slide. Sorry about that. And moving on, Flutter. We all know Flutter, it seems. Yes? Please say yes, everyone. Perfect. Next. So why combine both? Why combine Flutter and Clean Code? And so, as we established, we are programmers. We did a lot of things with our head, and we have to communicate that with others. When we establish clear guidelines as to how to structure the code, we have a better way to communicate and scale from there. So it's about standardizing the code. And here I wrote scalability really to talk about how it's easier to maintain, easier to communicate, and therefore easier to maintain collaboration. Because when it's clear in our head, we have ease of communication. We can then more easily debug and test and communicate simple parts to others. And of course, while I don't think everyone likes, or most people don't like working with legacy code, I think it's an important concept that we have to be able to know that in the future, our code will be read by other people, not necessarily us. So future-proofing is a big advantage of using clean code, or doing clean code. Well, this we skip, because everyone knows, since everyone knows Flutter, of course, as per the question I asked earlier. I'm sorry if there are questions. I'm a bit tight on time, I'm told. It is what it is. Okay. Widget composition and separation of concerns. So I don't know if, should I talk about this? Yeah, sure, okay. So in Flutter, it's all widgets all the way down from the top to the bottom. And so we're talking about here composition, which means composing widgets from other widgets. And here we have also the concept of, once again, of, did I put it? Okay, I didn't put it, sorry about this. But of abstraction, layers of abstraction. So we want clear names, and we want to be able to, boy. So I'll try to keep, I'm thinking about something, but it's way too far from what I'm talking about in order to make it simple. So yeah, I think I'm going to make a shorter presentation than what I would like to make, but. Okay, no, I'm mostly worried about time, but since I'm encouraged, I will take all the time. Okay. So, in clean code, we have the concept of abstractions of layers, right? Layers of abstraction. And here we have here we're already touching slightly upon the concept of layers of abstraction. So we have a layer of abstraction, layers, and within this layer we have names that are clear within the layer, and above we have more abstract names, below we have more fine-grained, detailed names. Same thing with widgets. We want to create small widgets that are within the layer of abstraction with names that are relevant to that layer, okay? And so, so keep the complexity low or relevant to the layer of abstraction you're at. I'm just trying to find, okay. So let's just go to this slide. Yeah, so I was talking about naming conventions, consistent and descriptive naming. I did not add an example, but that's okay. Okay. So another cornerstone of writing clean code is ensuring that your naming conventions and overall code readability are top-notch. When you name your variables, you should strive for clarity. Each name should immediately give the reader an idea of what the element is for. This might sound simple, but it's an often overlooked aspect of coding that can have a massive impact. In addition to good naming, effective comment is crucial. So use comments wisely. Instead of explaining what the code does, which should be evident by the code. Code should be self-documented. That's my take on that. Explain why an approach was taken instead of like explaining what the code does. Why does the code do it this way? So this will help future readers of the code take decisions for changes concerning the code. Also, Dart's posts documentation comments, which you can use to generate API docs. That's good to know for future proofing your code. So managing state for clean code. So it's a critical aspect of any Flutter app that is slightly above, well, any critical app really, any app I believe has to some degree. Well, it's false. Okay, it's false. If you have like a one-page app, you don't need state management. But let's say for at your level, I think all of you will have apps that require some sort of state management. So the basic ones are such as river pod, provider, block. And while each has its strength and trade-off, the common thread among them is the importance of separating the business logic or the state management logic, if you will, from the UI. So when you tightly couple business logic with UI code, you create scenarios where even a small change would have unintended consequences in another. If we go back to the previous talk or one of the two previous, I don't recall which one right now, where you have both the Android and iOS and Flutter. So you can kind of imagine how you only want to communicate the business logic, but if it was tightly coupled with the UI, then you couldn't do the communication because you're jumping from Flutter to Android or iOS. What else? Okay. So yeah, by isolating the state management in its own layer, you make your UI code cleaner and more focused on rendering, while the logic that handles data changes and updates is kept in a dedicated class of service. For example, using provider allows you to manage state in a central location. UI widgets simply subscribe to changes and rebuild when necessary. This separation not only aligns with clean code principles, but it makes it much easier to test your business logic in isolation. Clean code makes it more easier to test your business logic in isolation as you integrate a state management solution. Think of a way where you can reinforce the division between app presentation and the underlying logic. Tooling for maintaining clean code. There are linters. Well, okay. I'm trying to improvise because I wrote the text, but I'm trying to improvise at the same time. It's kind of hard, but let's go on. So writing code is, clean code is not just about how you write code, it's also about using the right tools. And so one of them is, of course, Flutter Analyze that helps catch potential issues early. Flutter Format that ensures the code adheres to a consistent style, which is something we touched upon earlier. So consistent style in order to standardize the code, in order for it to be easy to communicate within the team and to the future maintainer of the code and maintainer of those who modify the code. And beyond those built-in tools, we can also use additional linters such as Dart Analyzer. And additionally, I strongly recommend to do code reviews as part of any essential practice. Yes. Beautiful. My favorite part, the one where we see actual code. So this is an example of a code where, is it? Oh, yes. This is a class called user profile. So basically, it's a class which sole purpose is to handle UI rendering, business. Okay, sorry. I'm trying. Is it visible to all of you? Okay. So, sorry. What this does is just. You have a user profile. No, wait. I just want to make it. Sheesh. Where's my mouse? It's here. Small. Okay. All right. So as we can see, we import the material library. We have a class called user profile. We have the state of the class. And what it does is we have here where we fetch the user data. And this is just like a magic function that calls an API and actually fetches the data of the user. So what are the issues here? What are the issues you guys are finding? Yes?
There's a business logic directly in state.
Okay. What else? So we have business logic in, how do you put it? Business logic in
the state.
In the state, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I should have removed that. I should have removed that. Sorry. Okay. So according to what we talked about, what was earlier, what else is there?
Should be a stateless widget instead of stateful widget.
Stateless widget instead of stateful. Anything else? All right. Let's actually analyze it. I just want to. Okay. So yes, before we had A single widget handling UI, business logic, and state changes. Yes, you read the comment well. And we also had poor naming and deeply nested code. So what we had exactly was user profile state, init state, fetch user data. But what I'm suggesting here is two files, two classes. So we have the separation of concerns, and we don't have deeply nested code as we had earlier, like where everything is in one file, all nested inside one in the other. So here we have user service. Instead of having the user service here, we have it in its own class, and so this simplifies the code. We don't have within one layer, which is the widget. We don't have also another layer, which is the call to the API. Good separation of concerns. And user profile, as you said, we only have, you said it, only a stateless widget because the state is, but here I also use a feature builder. Okay. Okay. So we can see that the principles have been applied to improve maintainability and clarity. The key changes here were the separation of business logic and UI. And we moved the code responsible for fetching the user's name into a separate class you call user service. And the class now handles the API call, and our widget simply relies on it to provide the data. So this only displays data. And also it has been refactored to a stateless widget. Instead of managing the state internally, we now use a feature builder to handle asynchronous data retrieval. And so, yeah, the sole responsibility, which we talked about earlier, the single responsibility of this widget is now to render the UI based on the state of the future. And so the separation of concerns make the widget much easier to test, maintain, and extend in the future. So it's now more clean code, and more modular, but also made it more resilient to changes. And so now if we have a change to we want to make a change to the fetching of user data in the future, we only need to change user service instead of having to go into the widget. So this is a simple example of how to apply clean code principles in Flutter, how it can lead to more robust and maintainable applications. So to recap, use meaningful names, single responsibility principle, also adhere to it. Avoid duplication using dry, don't repeat yourself. Keep things simple. So yeah, keep things simple. Let's keep it PG-13. And maintain consistency. So yeah, KIS, yeah, right? KISS, yes. And the Flutter best practices. And organize your projects file logically, compose your widgets by separating UI from logic, choose appropriate state management strategies, tools and techniques, linters, formatters, state management libraries. So using this, we have code that is easier to read, maintain, and extend. And so, I'm sorry? Oh, sheesh. Oh, sheesh, this guy. Thank you. Where is it? It's here. Okay. You think well, thank you. So, okay. So the benefits would be improved maintainability, easier debugging, and smoother team collaboration. If there's any questions, please, it is time now.
A quick question. In the code you showed, you start the fetching of the user's name, right, line 15. I'm not sure how it works because I've never used a feature builder like this. But let's say it takes a long, long time. Is it still going to show what's in the build, or since it's like the first thing in the class, it's going to be delaying the display?
So this is calling the, wait. So if I can, your question is why? If this takes a lot of time to fetch,
Yeah.
what happens here?
Yeah.
That's your question?
Yeah,
Like,
basically.
It's a feature, so it's just a variable.
Right.
And then you put it in the, when it calls build, it will wait.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There's no wait. Right.
It doesn't like.
so it's, yeah, it's a future.
Okay.
We just input, yeah, you get it.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Any other question? Yes.
I have one question related to you sharing clean code. I will ask, when do we apply exactly clean code? Because if I start my project and I just have, let's say, one feature that I have to put inside, do I need to apply clean code?
Well, it's not a,
Just your feedback on that.
if you have one project,
One project and one feature, just one.
you have one project and one feature, I think it's good practice at all times to have clean code. Okay, wait. It's a habit, right? It's a habit. It's a habit, an instinct you build, up, and then you don't really think about it anymore. Please, go ahead.
If you're not releasing at least once per month, or you don't have 20,000 lines of code, you shouldn't do clean code. It's just going to need more.
Okay. So there's a method to the madness, which is, of course, when you have enough experience, you know what you're doing, you can't, it's like, they say these things, know the rules before breaking them. So once you know what you're doing, I guess you can take that risk. But I'm firmly of the school that says, know the rules first. So know what you're doing first before saying, oh, well, in this function, since I'm doing very few things, or nothing beside this feature, I will do a single function, and that's going to do everything. Well, it makes sense if your app does nothing else, right? It could make sense in any case, but I personally have acquired the taste that clean code is cleaner than most code, so I just like it. So I would do it anyway, to have it layered, because I just find it more beautiful. Go ahead.
Your family, they're going to put your name in the AI agent. It's going to read all the code you've ever written in your life. And they're going to have a score.
No, you're absolutely right, but I just want to see that with the clean code, the way you implement it, just reading the final result, you need to know a little bit more about how to implement the service. What is the state management? Where is those files? If you're the only developer, you need to think how you want it. And if you're all together and you say now, okay, the project is going to take 3 months, 4 months, you will also need to take a step back and brainstorm before putting clean code. Clean code is good, but if you're ready to work, as the developer is saying, you need to do a little bit more what you're doing in the front line, easy. Keep it simple is not easy to keep it simple.
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to add that even the code you write yourself and no one else reads, like in 2 years, you won't even remember what you meant. So yeah.
It's just the organization, organizing everything. Come with a trainer.
Yeah.
It's really good. I'm not saying it's good. Perfect. I was just want to see that.
Okay. Yes, please.
Would you consider what's more important, clean architecture or clean code?
By clean architecture, you mean something like, wait, let me pull out an example. So, what do you mean by clean architecture?
So if you had to pick one of the two, would you do clean code with a bad architecture or no? Because I think you systematically want clean architecture first and clean code after.
Okay. I don't see the difference, to be frank. To me, you need to do one and do the other. Because clean code is just lower level, same thing.
Clean architecture is just a way to achieve clean code.
It's just a project structure and build structure and CI structure that you can get along.
But
What's the worst case of naming I've ever seen?
Me? Well, it wasn't Java. It wasn't Java. It was like something factory, something singleton. I'm like, okay.
Let's say the common use cases, like you go to a project that which has not a clean code and not clean architecture, nothing, not, and do you suggest like to clean code over there or just simply follow the other function rules or something?
That's an excellent question, actually. This is for architecture. We'll talk about it later. But your question is excellent because we don't always enter a project that is new or that has space. You have the time to change, do meaningful changes to it. So my take on that is to always start with legacy code, like treat legacy code as the standard to follow first. And once you have followed that standard and you know how things work, because the code you work with is the language that everyone already knows when you enter a team, right? So follow the existing standards first and try to adapt it to make it better. That's progressively, but yeah, don't just come in a project, change everything, and then everyone's angry at you, you know?
You need to convince the team.
What?
You need to convince the team first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isolate it to a package first.
What?
Isolate it to a package first.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry?
But you continue to
Isolate things.
Okay. Isolate the package first. Yeah, I agree. Yes, please.
Another question. You mentioned a few of the state management solutions. Do you have an opinion on when you should use one or the other?
Yeah, sure. So I believe that some are heavier in terms of boilerplate code, such as Block, which I wanted to show. So there's more code to do the same thing than another one, such as Provider or Riverpod. And so if you have very simple requirements and you just go with the simpler one, in which in this case I'll say Provider is enough. Like even simple app, like you don't even need a state management library if you have a very simple app. You can just use a stateful widget. It's really a question of complexity. But I like to do things standardized. So I always try to do Block. But I avoid it when it's not necessary, you know, but I just like it, so yeah. So I wanted to, but any other questions before I just talk slightly about architecture?
One last topic.
What? Okay. So I don't remember, you asked a question about clean architecture, right? To me, this is a clean architecture. So this is basically the division of layers. And I know you meant more than that, but to me, this is sufficient. Oh, we don't? A nice clean separation of concerns. So we have the UI or application layer. We have the domain layer, which is the one just below it, and then we have the data layer, which would be the database or API. Here we have some business logic, right? This is what when you tell me clean architecture, I tell you this I show to everyone. I just like it. And unless you meant something else, more.
You can have more layers.
Yeah, I know you can have more layers, but how far do you want to go?
buy the book, like that.
That's
But
just to come
yeah,
back
if
to
you
my
want
question.
more.
What?
That was exactly what I was asking. How far we want to go?
Yeah.
Because it gets jump quicker than over engineering.
Yes.
As an engineer, that's what I was asking. When you say that you want to make clean code, when do you stop?
Is minimum?
This is minimum.
I always say humbly, I always say something when I say to my team. It really depends. I think that's also what Alexander was sharing. Sometimes you come to people who build it. So
Yeah.
I have my opinion, I have my preference, and at the end of the day, people who are building, so they decide where you want to go and follow.
I agree with you. So it really depends about what the actual builders are more comfortable with that makes sense with the project. Yeah.
Clean code sometimes, like what I've seen, just to share with you my experience with a team, putting in place the best architecture, sometimes you're losing for a while. So if you just start a project right now, say, you start Flutter project, you start putting in
Yeah, that's what PR reviews are good. That's a good reason. Like they teach the younger how to code correctly. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I don't have, unless there's something else. Cool.
I have one recommendation. As someone who uses a lot of block, don't use block if you don't have server streaming or WebSocket technology. Use provider instead. Because if you don't need server stream technology, stick with provider. It's easy.
I don't like Remy or Soleil, so I don't use Spanish.
Wasn't provided deprecated by Remy? He doesn't say use a river partner?
No, I mean provider. What? Don't go for block systematically if you don't have server-side streaming technology in your project.
I get what you mean.
Because I actually use it, web server-side streaming. It makes it necessary to have block, otherwise.
I don't fully agree. It's nice to have a stream of changes, even though they're not. They're like discrete changes. They're an actual stream, but you can see the changes of state and the block.
Slideshow.
I have one question for Alexander and Florian here.
Huh? Ah,
How big is the size? How many? We have a bunch of fractions of this. Six devs, but none of them are Flutter.
oh, I get.
People graph.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, six devs, yeah. I'm all learning as we go.
Because we use server-side streaming.
Okay. Hello. Yeah. So thank you. That three speakers actually. We have. Well, yeah. If it's like community time, we have 5 minutes. Do you have anything to ask to anyone like we did before? We can just continue. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Nothing more. Okay.
Came back after
There was a lot of questions.
Theo is also came back
Okay. Okay. So next event, it will be next so March meetup. We will have a FlutterFlow workshop. So if you don't who don't know about FlutterFlow? Okay, actually everyone know. Okay, so if you want to come and drag and drop widgets, it's completely different from native and development, Flutter development. So place is to be defined and date also. So connect to the Discord, we will give you information or in meetups. So she's gonna make an announcement. Oh, you don't need this. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiho Park. I am a WTM ambassador. Nice to meet you all. I'm here for a brief talk. I promise this is short. So I wanted to talk about WTM. WTM stands for Women Tech Makers. It is Google's program to empower but the biggest activity is that we are shining is to host the annual event in annual conference every year to celebrate the International Women's Day. So it is also happening, it will be happening in Montreal as well. Actually, WTM Montreal is quite big. We are a part of the largest move. We are always a good example for other global WTM teams. So actually, this year is our 10th anniversary. It has been really 10 years. We have quite long history, considering, yes, the Google's, I think. Yeah, Google's WTM started 13 years ago, and ours started 10 years ago. It's quite long. So it is happening on April 5th at Collège de Maisonneuve, and we have been preparing many talks, like soft talks and tech talks, and panel, and also there will be 3 workshop sessions. This is something new. Why are you laughing? This is something new for us, but I know why he's laughing, because this year we're going to have 3 sessions for workshops, and 2 of them will be led by myself. So I'm going to be there. Also, the Flutter team will be there as well. So I just wanted to say, please spread some words. And even if the name is Women Tech Makers, actually we are open to everyone, to all the genders. So please feel free to find me if you have any questions, or if you're curious on the event, or any kind of other information I'm ready to share. And yes, please share some.
Thank you. So as you know, every month we have meetups and we need speakers. So if you have anything to share, experience, feedback, side projects, feel free. We have a sessionized link on the FlutterMTL.dev. You can or contact us on Discord. We always need sponsor. It can be about financial, venue, food, if you want to eat pizza more. If your company wants to host, or maybe you want to help us, very glad. And does anyone look for a job? 2, okay. 2. Who is? Yeah. We need to see you. And who is hiring? Okay. Okay. Still look on LinkedIn, huh? Ashley usually hires. Okay. And now it's time for feedback and raffle. So you can fill this form, and at the end we will have a raffle. And what is the game? Oh yeah, we have hats and t-shirts. So it will be for t-shirts and hats. Cats. Open something we can give. So you can scan it. Sorry? Oh yeah? Where's my laptop? Oh, my laptop is here. I didn't give access. Is it here? Share? Yeah. And then is there? Responder. Anyone will have the link?
Yes.
Okay, now you can try.
Can you try again? Does it work?
It will.
Right.
For sure. I got the recording.